back to Anthony's Tennis Hub. My name is Anthony Hirsch, and today I'm going to go over all things Australian Open. I want to preview the Australian Open men's event, going through match by match of the draw that came out yesterday. I'm going to give my predictions. I'm going to go a little bit in depth on the matches, and I'm also going to preview the event as a whole and talk about all things men's singles at the Australian Open in 2024. Thank you guys for joining into the Anthony's Tennis Hub podcast once again. And here's the thing, right? This is a tournament that Djokovic has won every time that he's entered it. So since 2018. So 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2023. So it certainly seems like Djokovic is the big favorite, but also Djokovic has lost 2 of his last 4 matches to De Minaur and to Sinner. He's lost 3 of his last 9 matches, I believe, 2 of those to Sinner. Sinner beating him 2 times at the end of last year. He's lost at least 1 set in 9 of his last 14 matches. He picked up a bit of a wrist concern at United Cup. But basically what I'm doing is giving any and all argument that I can find to the Serb, to Novak Djokovic. But really, it seems like he is the guy to absolutely beat at this tournament. But Alcaraz did beat him at Wimbledon when everybody thought that Djokovic was going to pick up the Wimbledon title. And he earned that win as well. So I guess you never know for sure. And that is why I'm going to go through the draw. Sinner, Alcaraz, Medvedev, the guys who all are looking to take out Novak. And then you have other dangers in the draw, like Dimitrov, like Hurkacz. So who knows? Like Runa. We'll see how the draw plays out. All right. So I'm going to go match by match here. I'm going to talk about the players, the matches, while I go through the draw. But then also at the end, after I fill out the draw, I'm just going to give my overall thoughts and overall preview to the men's tournament. I'm also going to do a video for the women's event as well. Alright, so Djokovic versus a qualifier. I feel like I have to give it to Djokovic. There's some really high-level qualifiers, but you gotta go with Djokovic against a qualifier, right? Not gonna talk too much about that. Alexei Popyrin versus Mark Polmans, 2 Australian players. I'm going to go with Alexei Popyrin. He pushed Safulin to a 3rd-set tiebreaker last week in Brisbane, so he's playing good ball, and he can be a good player. Hoffman or Monfils. Hoffman beat Sebastian Corda last week, but Gael Monfils is a guy who I don't know. I think Monfils is a bit... He knows that he's probably not going to play too many more major draws, if we're being honest, and he has that motivation going for him. And I kind of like what I've seen from him in Australia, so I'm going to go with Monfils. Murray or Echeverry. Echeverry beat Murray a few months ago, or several months ago, in Basel. And Echeverry is a very good player. I expect big things from Echeverry. He's yet to win an ATP title, but before the season started, I think he's going to not just win his first ATP title, I think he's going to win a couple of ATP titles, especially on clay courts. He is a fantastic player. I love how he looked at Roland Garros. Very strong mentality, good grinder, and just really solid player from the back of the court. I like Thomas Martin. Echeverry also seems like a very genuine guy. But here's the thing. I know Murray is like the name in the draw that's like everybody's rooting him on, but we don't know if he's going to go that far. I like Murray at the Australian Open a lot, even now. Because Murray at the Australian Open might be the best player ever at a certain major to never win that major. And there are other names to come to mind as well. But Andy at the Australian Open reached 5 finals, I believe. And then and then in another semifinal, he lost to Novak in an epic 5-set match when Novak was playing unbelievably good tennis. So Murray at the Australian Open is built different. I mean, this is a guy who has only lost to Federer and Djokovic in Australian Open finals. This is a guy who played amazing at this tournament. This is a guy who beat Berrettini in a 5th-set tiebreaker from down match point last year, running around with a metal hip. This is a guy who then came back from 2 sets left down and 5-2 down versus Thanasi Kokkinakis, who was playing extremely high level who was being cheered on from the crowd. And he came back in one of the matches of the year, and one of the best matches of the decade, you could say. So... amazing. He plays amazing at this tournament. Murray always picks it up, and people who play well at Australian Open, you can say they do well during the off season. They tend to find a good way to start the season off, and Andy is one of those guys I always feel like always starts the season off super hot. And I reckon Murray's going to also want revenge over Echeverry, because Murray had a chance to go on a good run in Basel, and Echeverry just took it from him in 3 sets. So I'm going to say Andy. It might be a 5-set, long buster though. But I go Murray in 4 sets. I think Murray gets it done. We'll see though. That's a tough first round, and Echeverry is a seed. Mannarino or Wawrinka, that is tough. Wawrinka has won this event. He won it 10 years ago in 2014. And the year before that, he also played an all-timer versus Novak. Wawrinka can play incredible tennis at the Australian Open. The pace of shot he can get at this event is just ridiculous. So, but Mannarino, man. Mannarino's been playing well. In fact, if I'd look up what Mannarino's recent results have been to help me see if I could imagine a Wawrinka upset here more easily. But Mannarino is a guy who, he's won most of his titles in his 30s. He's 35. He just cracked the top 20 in the world for the first time. Mannarino ended the season last year with a title in Sofia. I think Wawrinka can do an upset, but I'm going to go Mannarino, especially because Wawrinka was struggling a little bit ever since Umag towards the end of last season, so I'm going to go Mannarino. Let's speed this up a little bit. Shevchenko or Munar. Shevchenko had a pretty bad loss in the last event, but in general, I do like Shevchenko. I'll give it to Shevchenko, but not by a whole lot. That could go 5 sets. O'Connell or Christian Garin. Christopher O'Connell. I like Christopher O'Connell, and he's an Aussie. He's going to have home crowd support. I'm going to go O'Connell. If it was on clay courts, then Garin would definitely win that, probably. Batista Gu or Shelton. That is one hell of a first round. Roberto Batista Gu or Ben Shelton. Are you kidding me with that? That is a clash of styles of a guy who is super big on serve versus just an outright grinder. I'm looking at Batista Gu's recent results, and they're actually not that encouraging, to be honest. A lot of the losses are very close losses, though, but to Sebastian Offner, he lost first round to Carbeis Baena last week in straight sets. So I'm going to go give to Shelton for sure, especially since he's defending quarterfinals. And motivation is a big thing in tennis. Like, if somebody is motivated by defending a quarterfinal, why do people say motivation and mentality is so important in tennis? Usually a tennis match is only divided, like, if you look at the total points won, usually it's only divided by about 5 points. So, in those 5 points, in the tight margins, if you're playing on survival instinct and on the instinct that if you lose this match, you're going to go down 20 spots in the rankings, that motivation is going to play big dividends there. So, we'll see. Shelton seemed to play well here in Australia last year, so, especially playing for the first time in Australia, so I'll give it to Shelton. Fritz or Diaz Acosta, I'll go for Taylor. Carbeis Baena or Goyo, I'm going to give it to, let's give Carbeis Baena. He seems to be playing pretty well at the moment, to be honest. But that could go either way. Murazan or Marin Cilic, what a first round, man. What a first round. Marin Cilic, on his comeback, the underrated guy of this Big Four era that nobody ever talks about, who's reached 3 major finals at 3 different majors, right? He's played so many 5-set matches. I think he's in the top 5 or top 10 for most 5-set matches ever played because his longevity is so crazy. And he's a bit of a warrior, but he just lost a super heartbreaker tight match that's definitely going to be a hit of the confidence to Jan Lennart Struve in his first match back in about a year. So I don't know what that's going to do. Murazan's playing well. I'm going to give it to Murazan, but I think again it's going to be a heartbreaker. I think Murazan beats Cilic in like 5 sets. I could see that going either way, though. If it does go 5 sets, Cilic has the more experience. But anyway, I'm going to give it to Murazan off a gut feeling. Francisco Cerundolo or a qualifier. I'll give it to Cerundolo, but never know. Musetti or Bonzi. Lorenzo Musetti is an interesting guy, right? And I'll probably talk more about these players once they get to like more interesting contests in the later rounds. So I'll wait to give my spiel on Musetti because I'm going to bring him into the second round anyway. I say he beats Bonzi. Von Osh or Duckworth. I'm going to say Von Osh, Vukic, or Thompson. I'm going to say Jordan Thompson. Just beat Nadal in incredible fashion. Big serve. Don't see why not. Berrettini or Tsitsipas. Okay. That's a first round. That makes sense. Major finalist versus major finalist. Both guys lost to Novak in all of their major finals. 3 major finals, all of them to Djokovic. Lost. 2 guys that really struggle off the backhand side, but man, can they hit the forehand. 2 guys that are guys that people were like, oh, they should win majors. Well, not yet. So let's see how they do. This is a crazy first round. It comes as a first round because, of course, Berrettini is not seeded. So crazy. Tsitsipas defending a final. If Berrettini beats Tsitsipas, how far does Tsitsipas fall in the rankings, if at all? I could probably look it up because what is it? Now a major final is worth 1,300 points, but it was 1,200, so I think he'd go down 1,200 points. So if I have it right, then he would go down to about 2,800, which would be about 13th in the world. Assuming nobody else climbs ahead of him, too. That would be crazy. Tsitsipas hasn't fallen out of the top 10 since early 2019. Berrettini versus Tsitsipas, like I said, neither guy is going to be very confident about their backhand side. I actually really like Matteo in 5-set matches, if this does go 5 sets. Tsitsipas has like a bit of an injury concern. I don't know, am I going to go with Matteo for the upset here? He retired against Rune at the ATP Finals. He didn't, he played one match at the United Cup. I think he played Steven Diaz, if I'm not mistaken. 1 or 2 matches there. So I don't know. Tsitsipas played a little bit better towards the end of last year against Grigor Dimitrov, another one-handed player. But I don't know. Okay, here's the thing though. Tsitsipas is consistent at the Australian Open. He loses semifinals to Medvedev every year. That's the thing, right? No matter what happens, he's losing. And then, last year he went a step further and got to the final because Medvedev lost earlier. No, he was playing really well last year. But he was playing really well last year, and he's consistent at Australian Open. I'm going to say this. I could easily imagine Matteo having an upset here, even though Matteo isn't in the best form. Even at Wimbledon, when he was playing very big matches against top guys, he picked it up a little bit. Berrettini likes majors. He's consistent at majors. He's reached quarterfinals at every single majors, even though he wasn't really at the top for that long of a period of time. He likes the best of 5 format in the majors. And I won't be surprised if there's an upset if I'm going with Stefanos Tsitsipas because he's consistent in Australia. Sinner or Botic van der Zandschulp? I'm going to go with Jannik, and Jannik is going to be really exciting to see what he does in this event. I think that both Jannik and Carlos are beyond compelling for how they're going to do in this tournament. It's really, their trajectory so far really set up their performances at this event to be incredibly compelling. Because Alcaraz, first of all, Alcaraz didn't play the Australian Open last year. He withdrew out. And Jannik, both guys are yet to reach semifinals here. Carlos doing not that great of a finish to last year's season, a little bit better towards the second half of the ATP Finals, but still not that great of an end. Jannik, an incredible ending to last year's season, but Australian Open has been Sinner's weakest major. I am as high as anybody on Sinner. I really am. I think I've been the guy who's been saying I think he's going to win multiple majors. I think he's going to be a future world number 1. I've been saying that for a couple of years now. So my thing is that this is his worst major. It's tied with the U.S. Open, but at the U.S. Open he's reached the 4th round 3 times. At the Australian Open he's only reached the 4th round twice. Jannik, it's just, Jannik, both of the last 2 years, for example, last year, right? He lost in Adelaide. He was a little bit injured against Sebastian Korda, in Adelaide. He basically retired out that match. It was a completed match, but he was basically just not moving in the second set. Korda won 6-1. And then he went down 2-0 against Vucevic. He went down 2-0 against Tsitsipas. He started coming back, but then the kind of physical thing at the majors, he kind of drifted away, and also his game wasn't really there in the 5th set. Tsitsipas ran away with it. If you go down 2-0 against Tsitsipas at the Australian Open, good chance you're not going to be able to complete that comeback. So and the year before that, he lost in 3 straight sets, super comfortable as you like. I watched that match. It was very upsetting for me as a Sinner fan who thought his potential should be much higher than it was. Sinner agreed with me, and he said, you know what, I'm firing my whole team. This isn't working how it should be. This is not working for me the way that it should be working. And he said, I'm getting rid of my whole team. I'm starting new. Got Cahill on my team. It worked well in the end. It's working well now. But Jannik, this is his worst major. He ended the season incredibly last year. He had an amazing season throughout the year, pretty much since the Australian Open. reaching 3 consecutive Masters semis, won his first Masters, reached his first major semifinal. He won 2 500 events in Vienna and Beijing that were pretty much on par with Masters wins, beat Sinner and Medvedev in straight sets, consecutive victories back to back. He beat Medvedev in 3 consecutive tiebreakers. This is a guy who beat Medvedev again at the ATP finals. This is a guy who beat Djokovic twice. One of them beat Djokovic from down 3 consecutive match points. First loss like that in Djokovic's whole career. Jannik's been playing amazing. I've been really happy to see this from him. It's taken a lot of struggle, a lot of work, and he's really got here. So it's going to be really compelling to see how he does. Anyway, I think he beats Botic van de Zandschulp. Hot take from me. I think Jannik wins. Catch-in or a qualifier? I'm going to go with the qualifier, to be honest. And then I think that's the only time I'm going to say that. And then Galan versus Jason Kubler. I'm going to go with Kubler in front of the home crowd. JJ Wolf or Sebastian Baez. I'm going to go with JJ. I like JJ's talent. I like how JJ's been looking. I like him on these hard courts. I like JJ. And this is a guy who I think is constantly underperforming. Like, his talent levels are so much higher than where he is in the rankings. Like, it really, really is. I've been high on this guy for a while, and I think he should win a title. At least a title. Like, he shouldn't... His talent levels and his kind of... I don't know. He should be higher, I think, than where he is. And he works hard. I like JJ. He's a genuine guy working hard, and he's talented. And a very unique game, kind of slice serves. I like JJ. Tiafoe or Borna Coric. That's a hell of a first round. Tiafoe or Coric, but I'm gonna go with Tiafoe. Coric didn't look that hot at the United Cup, although it was his first event back since the United Cup. Tiafoe's talented. He's had a few good performances at the Australian Open. In fact, really, he broke through at the Australian Open one year, reached the quarterfinals pretty much out of nowhere, unseeded. So, I like Tiafoe at this event. I think he does well. Maček or a qualifier, I'm going to go Thomas Maček. I think he's an underrated player, young guy. Tabilo or a qualifier, I'm going to go Tabilo. Altmaier or Khachanov, that is a tough first round for Khachanov. Did Altmaier win his match yesterday? No, he retired against Artur Fils. Okay, well, I don't know how bad that injury is. Khachanov's defending semifinals. Khachanov, up until Roland Garros last year, before he had to withdraw from Wimbledon, incredible season. He reached the top 10 for a week. He was probably going to stay in the top 10 if he was able to play the rest of the season. I like Khachanov. Has Khachanov played so far this year? I think he lost his first round to somebody. I don't remember who it was to in one of those tournaments. Brisbane, Hong Kong. Yeah, Hong Kong, he lost to Ruusuvuori in the first round in 3 sets. But that's not an easy first round. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Ruusuvuori. That Ruusuvuori is such a good player that result isn't that frustrating, especially since Khachanov, that was his first match of the season. So I'm going to go with Khachanov, but I could see an upset there for sure. He did upset Sinner at Roland Garros, as we all know. Another crazy one. 2 crazy matches right back to back. This one might be even crazier. De Minaur taking on Raonic. Raonic is a scary player, man. To me, Raonic is the definition of underrated. To me, Raonic is a guy who was constantly getting injured when he started playing his best. This is a guy whose peak was extremely high. Watch his ATP Finals run in 2016. That's, in my opinion, the best tennis I've ever seen him play. He had a match point up on Murray there to get to the final. That would have stopped Murray from getting to world number 1, at least at that point. He can play amazing. Raonic, in my opinion, has an all-time great serve. He's a guy who hits so many aces. He can place the serve. I love the motion that he has on his serve. His forehand is fantastic. He has such a good forehand. Dare I say, up there with Roddick as the best forehand for a guy with a big serve. And Roddick's forehand is probably a little bit better, but he has a really strong forehand as Raonic. This is a guy who's constantly improving as well. He was working stuff into his game, the net play, especially when he had John McEnroe in his run to his major final in 2016. This is a guy who deserved a Masters. This is a guy who wasn't able to play that much, like I said, due to injury. So, definition of underrated is Milos Raonic. Like Marin Cilic, this is a guy who just isn't talked about, but anyway, he will play D-Min. And the thing about Raonic, Nishikori and Raonic, super successful comebacks into last year. They just didn't play that much, both of them. But counting challengers, Nishikori went 10-3 win-loss record in his comeback last season. Couple wins in Atlanta, won his first tournament back at a challenger event, which is beyond insane. And then Milos Raonic, he went 5-4, still a winning record. And he beat Kecmanovic, who was a top 40 player and a seed at his tournament, in straight sets. And then he beat Francis Tiafoe. So after being down a set as well, losing to 14-12 in the first set tiebreak, that was a crazy match. With a crazy set point in the first set as well, which was bananas. Raonic can beat top guys now because he beat Tiafoe and he beat Kecmanovic. That's the guy who's dangerous. de Minaur's playing next level, though. I'm going to look up if they've ever played before. It is possible they've overlapped. Raonic played a lot during the 2020 season. That was kind of his last really big full season before last year. Raonic, de Minaur head-to-head. They've played once. de Minaur won in 2018. Okay, that's a good sign for de Minaur if there ever was one. 6-4, 6-4 in Brisbane. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go with Demon. He's also been playing amazing. I mean, you can point to the win against Alcaraz in the exhibition match, but I don't put that much stake in exhibition. But what is encouraging, he played a phenomenal level in that exhibition, which shows how strong tennis he can play. That's pretty much the only thing I'll take out of an exhibition. If a player plays better tennis than I've ever seen them play in an exhibition and shows me, wow, they can, he was taking that exhibition match seriously. That's like the only thing I take out of an exhibition. He was pretty much playing some of the best I've ever seen him play. And against Djokovic, he played absolutely phenomenal as well. So, especially that Djokovic match to beat Djokovic with the pressure on, absolutely huge win. So, de Minaur might have a run, but Raonic is a tough first round. He's a bit of a question mark, unpredictable there. As a possible upsetter is Raonic. Arnaldi or Walton, I'm going to go with Matteo Arnaldi, pretty talented young guy. Kotov or Rinderknecht. I think it's going to get interesting as we go to the later rounds. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, so. Kotov or Rinderknecht. I'm going to go with Rinderknecht. Qualifier or Jarry, I'm going to go Jarry. Still like Jarry. Even though he hasn't performed exceptionally well at majors yet. That's something that guys like Jarry, Griekspoor, guys who were pretty consistent last year and had their best seasons yet, but they didn't perform that well at majors. It was actually at Wimbledon where Jarry had a very encouraging major run. Roland Garros as well. But yeah, I'm going to go Jarry anyway. We'll see if he can do it. Korda against a qualifier. Sebi Korda might have a run here. I'm going to go with Korda. Like last year, reached the quarterfinals. Hallis or a qualifier. I'm going to go with Quentin Hallis. Eubanks or Taro Daniel. Daniel is having a really good run this week. Has Christopher Eubanks played so far this year? This is something, if you're new to Anthony's Tennis Sub, this is something I do. I just look up stuff during the thing, because I want to be serious about it. I don't want to just look stuff up. I want to feel like I'm giving realistic, good kind of answers to the thing. Yeah, Eubanks just lost the Botic Van de Zandschulp. In Auckland, he lost first round of Paris. He lost first round of Basel. Lost first round of Stockholm to Kotov. And Kotov's playing well there, reached the final. But yeah, I'm going to go to Taro Daniel. I hope Chrissy can prove me wrong, though. Seyboth Wield or Rublev. I'm going to go with Andrei Rublev, although that's going to give some flashbacks to the Medvedev at Roland Garros. If Seyboth Wield is a dangerous guy with a pretty dynamic game, so we'll see what he can do. Runa or Nishioka, and pretty athletically impressive as well. Runa or Nishioka, Nishioka is a talented guy, but I gotta give it to Holger. Nishioka was losing 6-0, 6-0, 2-0 to Khachanov here last year. Khachanov with the game point at 2-0 as well, by the way. It was the fourth round. That is one of the most absurd things I've seen in the last 5 years of me watching tennis. That's unprecedented in the second week of a major for a guy to be losing like that. And I wouldn't expect Nishioka, who seems to, be a pretty hard worker, whatever you say about his kind of on-court personality or his mentality, pretty hard-working guy and pretty talented, obviously. You would expect him to at least be able to win a game. You wouldn't expect Khachanov to be the guy winning 6-0, 6-0. So, anyway, I thought that was quite funny and really random. Laszlo Djere or Artur Kazau. I probably mentioned it on this channel. I've had my eye on Artur Kazau for a couple years now. Really talented French guy. France, they've been struggling for a long time, but look at the players they have now. Arthur Fils, they have Hugo Humbert, they have Luca von Osch, they have other guys in there like Mute, they have this guy, Kazau, who I'm high on. There are a few I haven't named. Man Marino's in the top 20. French tennis should be excited about its future. A lot of those guys that I named are far from their best yet anyway. Kei Zhao, ridiculously talented player. I like his personality and mentality as well, and he's just an all-court player that I really enjoy. Rune Kei Zhao would be a good second round. I would recommend watching that if Kei Zhao can do that, because he's a hell of a watch. Feast versus Vesely, I go with Artur Feast, but Yuri Vesely is one of the last guys who's unseeded you ever want to see in your major first round, because he will just play top 10 out of nowhere, especially if he's playing Djokovic. Was he up 3-0 on Djokovic? Safiullin or Talon Griekspoor? I'm gonna go with. That's a tough first round. I actually don't know. Safiullin or Griekspoor? Griekspoor is a pretty complete, versatile player, pretty talented as well. And he's a guy who has a very strong mentality. You saw that in the title he won on the grass courts in the Netherlands last year, where he was down a set, and Jordan Thompson was who he was playing in the final. Was pretty close to losing that match. Completely turned it around. This guy is pretty mentally solid. He wants to be at the top. He wants to work hard. He wants to be achieving. It's a guy who won about 8 challengers in one season at the challenger level, which is a record. So I like Talon, but Safiullin, this is a guy who I first saw in the outdoor hard courts in Australia at the ATP Cup a couple of years ago, was MVP like Karatsev. And this guy has a very strong backhand, pretty complete game, always looks good out there, very kind of just quiet, focused within himself. I like Safiullin. I also like Griekspoor. You know what it's going to come down to, if I think Safiullin can get this upset, is the head-to-head, to be honest. A pretty good matchup there, to be honest. And I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit for these last few first-round matches. Never played before? Okay, I'm just going to choose one. Safiullin or Griekspoor? Heart says Safiullin. Safiullin for the upset. Hugo Humbert or a qualifier? I'm going to go with Hugo Humbert. Hope he's healthy. He whipped Giroux out of, I think, Brisbane. He's really won the last title he played last year. He's playing absolutely insane tennis. Honestly, maybe top 10 level, arguably, when he's healthy. So hopefully he's healthy at the moment. Zhang or Korea? I'm going to go Zhang. I like him. Shapovalov or qualifier? I hate to do this. I'm going to go with a qualifier. Don't clip that. Or clip it. I don't care. Clip it. I think, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. Shapo, reached the round 16, pushed Rafa to 5 sets last year. This is a guy who should be doing way better. At certain times, even, his mentality hasn't been that bad, but at times his mentality has really cost him. And he's a guy who's so good, so young, such a talent, but his shot selection, I haven't seen the improvements I need, and he's only coming back to the tour, so I'm going to go with the qualifier. Hurkacz or qualifier. Okay, how much more do we have in the first round? This reminds me of how long a major is. I'm going to speed this up a bit. Dimitrov or Fucsovics. I'm going to go with Dimitrov, but Fucsovics is a tough name. Sebastian Offner or Kokkinakis. I'm going to go with Thanasi Kokkinakis, but Offner is dangerous, great forehand. Martyr or Borges. I'm going to go with Borges. No, I'm going to go with Martyr, actually. Lestion or Davidovich Fokina. I'm going to go with Fokina. Auger-Aliassime or Team. That's one of the blockbusters. Felix needs this match. Dominic, another heartbreaker if he can't do it, because it is an opportunity, especially since Felix isn't at his best. So it's sad either way, but also happy that one of them can get a win, get off to a start. They have a good second round potentially as well against Muller or a qualifier. They would have Medvedev in the third round. I'm going to go with Felix, but Dominic nearly won this event just 4 years ago against Djokovic, was up 2-1. Closest that a guy got to beating Djokovic since Nadal in the Australian Open 2012. And really the closest that player has come since then, period. So, but he's just not out of form. He played a good first set against Rafa, but I'm going to go with Felix because I tend to like Felix in Australia. Played some of the best hardcore tennis maybe I've seen in the last few years against Medvedev in the quarterfinals last year in an incredible match, but still lost it, but still. Got match point up, got 2 sets love up on Medvedev, who's in his absolute prime there. Muller or a qualifier. I'm going to go with Muller. This guy is pretty talented. I like him. He's just not quite good enough for most of the top guys. Kipson or Rusevori. I'm going to go with Emil Rusevori, living in center shadow, but he's underrated in his own right. Medvedev or a qualifier. Medvedev be quite the upset for qualifier 13. Zverev or Kopfer. I'm going to go with Sasha. Confidence from United Cup. Quan or qualifier. Which got a few more here. Maccabi or Mickelson, Lehechka or Zapata Moraes, Lehechka, he's in the semis this week. Nori or Varias, I'm going to go with Cam Nori. Lajovic or qualifier, Lajovic. Purcell or qualifier, Purcell. A lot of qualifiers here. Ramos, Vignolas or Rude. Casper, I like Casper. I hope that he performs better in Australian Open this year. This is the one major he hasn't really performed well at. Paul or Barrera, I'm going to go with Tommy Paul. Although he lost pretty comfortably to Draper. Speaking of Draper or Marcos Giron, I'm going to go Jack Draper. He's playing amazing. I hope he's healthy and doesn't cramp up like last year. Hopefully some experience and age and some muscle packing on. Hopefully that doesn't... And nerve management as well. He doesn't have to play Rafa. He'll have to play Marcos Giron, which is good for Draper. Kecmanovic or Watanuki, I'm going to go with Kecmanovic, but Watanuki is a really talented guy. If you haven't seen Watanuki play, he's a really fun watch. Hijikata or Struff, I'm going to go with Jan-Lennard Struff. Bublik or qualifier, we've got 3 more here, I believe. McDonald or Shang, I'm going to go Shang, talented teenager, but Mackey played amazing here last year. You know what, scratch that. I'm going to go with Mackey. Mackey played amazing last year. I think that he'll want to do well again. Evans or Sonego, I'm going to go with Dan Evans. I'm going to go with Dan Evans there. I like Evans, and I think that he'll do well. Gasquet or Alcaraz, I'm going to go with Carlos Alcaraz. And we have made it to the second round. By the way, 17 years age difference between Gasquet and Alcaraz. Gasquet wasn't able to defend points at the Australian Open. Not the Australian Open, in Auckland. He won the title this time last year. His last title, with a comeback against Cam Norrie from down, I believe, 2 breaks down. So, Gasquet is going to be outside the top 100 for the first time in about 20 years or something. And, I'm hoping that Gasquet can climb up. I don't think Gasquet is done yet. He's still playing good tennis. I don't think he wants to be done yet. He still seems like he's dedicated and motivated, but who knows how many more slam draws he's going to play. He's probably going to have to play the challengers. He'll probably get a wild card at least at the French Open, though. So, Djokovic or Popyrin, I'm going to go Djokovic. All right, hopefully second round doesn't take as long as the first round. But second round, Monfils or Murray. Monfils and Murray have one of the craziest head-to-heads ever. They've played 6 times in their career, not counting a challenger match that they played last year, which would be 7. These are 2 guys that should have played way more than that. Djokovic has played Monfils 19 times. Federer has played Monfils even more than that. Like, Monfils is always around. How do you play him 6 times if your name is Andy Murray? Like, that's crazy to me. I believe they'd only played once since the 2010 Roland Garros, if my memory serves me right, when they played at that challenger last year. Like, it is a crazy, crazy head-to-head that they have. But anyway, I'm gonna go with Andy Murray. I think Murray... And if you've seen the draw, you know what that means. But I'm going to go with Andy there. But really strange head-to-head between the 2. Because I like Murray at the Australian Open. And Monfils still kind of needs to prove himself a little bit starting the season off here. He also injured himself a little bit at UTS. He had chances against Morazan this week. Murray, I feel like, is the more solid player at the moment. Even if he's not solid as he was, say, 7 years ago when he reached the final here. Manarino or Shevchenko, I'm going to go with Manarino or Shevchenko. I'm going to go with Manarino, especially since Shevchenko lost this week, I think like 6-3, 6-1 to Christopher O'Connell. So even though I like Shevchenko, that's kind of a weird result for him. Speaking of Christopher O'Connell, he's going to play Ben Shelton. And I like Christopher O'Connell. He has a great one-hand back and very flashy player, but another flashy player, Ben Shelton, he's going to get the win, in my opinion. But never know, I guess. But Shelton is the guy. Shelton is defending quarterfinals, and he's a very talented, exciting youngster. For sure, Fritz or Corbet Baena, I say Taylor. Morazan or Cerundolo, I'm going to go with Morazan for the upset over Francisco Cerundolo. I like Morazan. I don't see him beating Alcaraz in straight sets once in the manner he did, and that's just not being a factor from there on out. Young guy, I think he'll have a decent run to at least the third round here. Musetti or Van Osh, also had a few decent performances towards the end of last year as well. Musetti or Van Osh, I'm gonna go with Van Osh for the upset. I'm gonna give a little bit of a run to Van Osh. I like Van Osh. I like Luka Van Osh. I think he's gonna have a little bit of a run. I love Van Osh's game. I think he has top 10 potential. I don't think he's gonna win a major at this point. I don't necessarily think he's gonna be top 5, but I think he can be top 10. I really do like Van Osh a lot. Very solid backhand, and just overall game is very, very good. I love what I see from him. And We'll see. With more experience, it's going to be easier to tell. Jordan Thompson or Tsitsipas. That's tough. Thompson beat Tsitsipas at Indian Wells last year. That said, Tsitsipas really wasn't at 100%, but Thompson just beat Rafa. A lot of eyes should be on both. That is a tough draw for Stefano Tsitsipas trying to defend a final. Tsitsipas, how many matches did Tsitsipas play at United Cup? I believe it was just the one match, maybe two. How many did he play at United Cup? Oh, he played Zverev as well. He played Zverev as well in 2 sets, lost in 2 sets. Zverev getting a break in both sets. So, man, am I going to go Thompson for the upset over Tsitsipas? Screw it. The truth is Tsitsipas wasn't fully healthy early on at the United Cup. He should be healthy now, but also it was a similar situation at Indian Wells, and we've seen it happen where Thompson got the win. He played really well to get the win there. He's getting confidence off the Rafa win. He'll have the home crowd advantage. Tsitsipas might have a tough match in the first round against Berrettini. So I'm just gonna go with the upset here. I haven't picked that many in the draw so far, so I'm gonna go with the Jordan Thompson upset over Stefano Tsitsipas, and it might happen in the first round as well with Berrettini. And it might not happen at all. Maybe we see another final performance. I'm going to go with Jordan Thompson for the upset over Steph. But Jordan Thompson seems to prove himself as a pretty high-level player when he's playing at his best. Big serve, big game. That can really test out the return of serve, especially off the back end of Steph. I reckon that Thompson might be able to do something here. Sinner or qualifier, I'll go with Yannick. Yannick Sinner, Kubler or Wolf. I'm going to go with JJ. Why not? Third round. Kubler lost like 6-1, 6-2 to Rafa, which Rafa is playing amazing, but I just think he's not the guy who... I don't know. That's pretty unclear there, especially since I said the seed in that section, Sebastian Baez goes out. Tiafoe or Modshok. I'm going to go with Francis Tiafoe. Let's see how Tiafoe has. He had a bit of a weird season last year. He won 2 titles on 2 different surfaces. The surface he didn't win a title on was hard courts. So he had a weird season. So he had a pretty good season, but Indian Wells semifinal. But since about Wimbledon, it just kind of started going downhill for him. It wasn't the best season, second half of the season for Tiafoe, to be completely honest. Tabio or Khachanov, I'm going to go with Khachanov. Who, like I said, will have to beat Altmaier in the first round. That's going to be much tougher than Tabio, if that is what it is. Demon or Arnaldi, I'll go with Demon. Rinderknecht or Jarry, I'm going to go with Jarry. Speed this up a little bit. Korda or Hallis, I'm going to go with Korda. Rublev or Daniel, going to go with Rublev, the big forehands. Runa or Kazao, I'm going to go with Runa, but like I said, that would be a match that I'd be excited to see. Another young guy, Artur Fils versus Roman Safiullin. Arguably the 2 most dangerous high-level, unseeded players at the moment. Yeah, my gut says Artur Fils wins that one, so I'm going to give it to Artur Fils. Humbert or Zhang, I'm going to give it to Hugo Humbert, assuming that Humbert is healthy, because he's playing incredible. Hurkacz or a qualifier, I'm going to go with QB. Dimitrov or Kokkinakis, that's a great second round, but Dimitrov, that might be straightforward too, because Grigor is just playing so well, just got his first title since 2017. Very excited to see a guy with a one-handed backhand in such a high level form at the moment, where some people might say he's playing top 5 at the moment. So it's amazing to see from Dimitrov. Fokina or Martyrer, Fokina. Auger-Aliassime or Muller. I'm going to give to FAA. I think Felix is going to have a run to the 3rd round. Would love to see it for FAA. Reached the 4th round last year. Medvedev or Ruusuvuori. Going to give it to Medvedev. Absolutely. Zverev or Kwan. Going to give it to Zverev. Getting towards the end of the 2nd round here. Mikkelsen or Lehechka. Going to give to Lehechka, but I really do like Mikkelsen a lot. I'm going to say, in the long scheme of things, I think I might prefer Mikkelsen to Lehechka. I think Mikkelsen's going to have a very good career, but Lehechka at the moment is playing really, really well. And I do like Lehechka as well. Big forehand. And seems to be a guy who's pretty fearless. You need that if you're going to be on the tennis court at this highest level. Cameron Norrie or Dusan Lajovic. I'm going to give it to Norrie, but you never know with Lajovic. Purcell or Casper Ruud. Casper is playing really well at United Cup. That's what makes me say Casper, but that could be tough for Casper, to be honest. Jack Draper or Tommy Paul. Now, this is an interesting match, but here's the thing. Jack Draper just kind of dismantled Tommy Paul 6-1, 6-4. So it's like Paul is a guy who I actually think is quite underrated in terms of he's always super impressive athletically, and yet he doesn't really get his flowers. But he's a guy who I think is super impressive is Tommy Paul, and he got to the semifinals out of Australia last year. He likes kind of faster courts. Australia isn't the fastest courts around, but kind of has the hot, humid conditions, which plays quick. But Jack just beat him 6-1, 6-4, and I am high on Jack. Talent, skillful player. Hasn't had the experience, but man, is he just relentless, ruthless, power, forehand, serve. I'm going Jack. Kecmanovic or Struff. I'm going to go with Jan Lennart Struff. Bublik or McDonald. That is quite a second round here. Going to the third round, I'm going to go with Alexander Bublik. Never know what to expect with Bublik. He was eating a guy's chips off the court today, which is just never know what to expect with Bublik. Bublik or McDonald, that's an interesting second round. I'm going to go with Alexander Bublik. This is a guy you never really know what to expect, though. He's eating a guy's chips today off the court. So, Evans or Alcaraz, I'm going to go. That's a fun second round. That was a great match at the last major that was played, the U.S. Open. I'm going to go with Carlos, though. Carlos has only played 5 matches in Australian Open, though, so it should be interesting. Novak Djokovic or Andy Murray to start off our third round, a match that I've been waiting for a long time. Since 2017 Doha, when they last played, these are two guys that have played, I believe, 5 times in Australia. I can count it up. 2011, they played in the final, 2012 semi, 2013 final, 2015 final, and 2016 final. So I believe this would be the 6th time they would play, which is crazy. All of them being either epic finals or epic semifinals. So, it'd be so good to see them play again. Djokovic is probably going to win this match. He's my pick here. But it would just be fun to see them play against each other. If Murray could even win a set, that would be a great accomplishment. Everybody would be excited about that, I think. Manarino or Ben Shelton. What is Manarino's results like at the Australian Open? I'm probably the only person who would look this up. But what are Manarino's results like at the Australian Open? Because Manarino's in good form. Like I said, he won the last title of the season last year on hard court. So I'm just kind of curious about Manarino's results in Australia. Not very good. Not very good at all, to be honest. Even compared to the other majors that he plays. He's 56% at Wimbledon, 50% at US Open, 44% in Australia. Reached the 4th round in 2022, though. I remember that. Played a good match against Rafa, or a good first set against Rafa, which went 16-14 tiebreaker. That was one of the craziest just moments in tennis. That was just unbelievable, that Manarino Nadal tiebreaker. If you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to go with Benny Shelton. He played first time in Australia last year, already playing amazing here. Fritz or Morozov, I'm going to go Taylor Fritz. I like Fritz in Australia. Luca Van Osh or Jordan Thompson. I'll say Thompson has a run to the 4th round. I feel pretty happy about that. It might be a bit of recency bias. It might be incorrect, but I was going back and forth on the Thompson Tsitsipas win. If he gets the win over that, and if I get the Musetti upset right, then even if not, Thompson has a decent chance. So I'll take Thompson to the 4th round. We're filling out the second week here. Sinner or JJ Wolf. That's a match that I tune in for. I love those guys. I'll pick Yannick, but both very talented guys. Next is Tiafoe taking on Karen Khachanov. I just realized I really haven't had that many seeds going out, at least towards the top. That many top 15 seeds going out. I did have Francisco Cerundolo losing to Morazan. I had Musetti going out. I have a few, and certainly the Steph one. But I was so close to picking here for Tiafoe to beat Khachanov, which really wouldn't be that much of an upset of one over the other. But my thing is that Khachanov is 3-0 over Tiafoe, as well as Tiafoe seems to really maximize and play at the hardcourt majors. I think that Khachanov played so well here last year, so well, not just the semifinal against Steph and to get there, but just the performance against Nishioka last year. So I'd choose Karen to get over the hurdle there. De Minaur or Nicolas Jarry. Demon or Jarry, I'm going to go with Demon. Very kind of different games. Jarry with a big forehand, big game, big serve. Demon kind of more defensive, but he's able now to play more better defense to offense, be more effective off it, and now stand up to the top guys, just being able to use his skills and hone in on them in a much more effective way. And I've loved what I've seen him. The work ethic, the speed, the skills always have been top 10. Now he's been able to make his game effective enough that it's top 10 as a whole, and it's fully deserved for Alex de Minaur. Sebastian Korda or Andrei Rublev. Wow, I didn't even realize that this was a potential third round match, but that is an amazing third round match. What is their head-to-head? Gotta look at the head-to-head, right? Sebastian Korda versus Andrei Rublev. Just a quick look here. 2-0 for Rublev, that's good signs. Rublev beat him in a final in 2022, 6-2, 6-3. In Gijón, so that's towards the end of the year. 7-5, 7-6 for Rublev in Miami, 2021. But they didn't play last year, you know? But Rublev is so consistent. He won a title. Korda, I'm still not as sure about on the mental side. Rublev is up and down on the mental side, and I mean up and down. I mean, this is a guy who came back from 5-1 down in the fifth set tiebreaker last year at the Australian Open. This is a guy who can play really mentally solid, came back against Reno Monte Carlo as well, saved match points multiple times in Dubai last year. Rublev can be very mentally solid, and Korda I'm not as confident about in that way yet, can make things quite difficult for himself. So Korda beat Medvedev in the third round last year. I say Rublev gets his revenge for his good buddy Medvedev in the third round this year and takes out Korda, but that's going to be a great match if we get it. Holger Rune or Artur Fils. Rune or Fils. Rune, I actually really liked how Rune was playing on the outdoor hard courts in Brisbane this week. Artur Fils will have his time. I'm going to give it to Holger this week because I really do like how he's playing. He was serving really well. And I liked how he was playing in Australia last year too, to be honest, fourth round. So I'm going to give it to Rune, but Fils will have his time. And it's going to be interesting how both their careers advance and what Artur Fils' ceiling is going to be like compared to a guy like Holger and how far he's going to go because he's a very talented player. Hugo Humbert or Hubert Hurkacz. I'm going to give it to Hurkacz. I think Hurkacz is a player who is dangerous. United Cup, having 2 match points for Poland in United Cup is going to take a hit on his confidence, but I like Hurkacz. I liked him last year at the Australian Open as well. He reached the fourth round last year, lost to Korda in a fifth set tiebreak, and I'm going to go with Hubie. Dimitrov or Fokina, going to give it to Grigor. Auger-Aliassime, Medvedev. That's a win for me. One of my favorite matches, the quarterfinal that I mentioned earlier, where they had some amazing rallies. It's very different Felix now. I'm going to give it to Danielle, but I hope we see that. And if you haven't seen the Medvedev Auger-Aliassime Australian Open match that they played a few years ago, look up the highlights on YouTube. Because it was a really good match. I love that match. Zverev or Lehechka, going to give it to Sasha. I don't think I have to say much of anything about that. He's of a higher tier of play at the moment. Norrie or Ruud, and more experience. Norrie or Ruud, I'm going to give it to Casper. But that could be tough, but Casper, I like how he's playing at United Cup. He'd be happy with the fourth round in Australia. I think it would be his first time reaching the fourth round in Australia, at least for the first time in a couple of years. Jack Draper, Jan-Lennard Struve. I'm going to go with Draper. I'd love to see him reach a fourth round at a major. He deserves a run like that. He deserves to rise up in the ranks. That's where his game belongs. Alcaraz or Bublik, going to give it to Alcaraz. Both absolute just powerhouses of games, but Alcaraz is way more solid base of the two players. All right, we are in the second week of the Australian Open. Like I said, I'll fill out the draw, and I'll probably start talking a little bit more in depth about some matches here. I know I've gone a little bit long already, and then I'll give an overall preview and or overall thoughts on the draw. But yeah, let's get into the fourth round of the Australian Open, which is going to be pretty interesting to look into, to be honest. This is where it can get pretty compelling with some of the matches in the really tough contest for players like Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner, Medvedev against guys who have gone deep here. Djokovic versus Shelton is the first matchup in the round of 16. Like I said, Shelton had a great Australian Open last year, but Djokovic is the king of Australia. It'd be hard to go against him. I think a lot of people would be excited to see this match after the kind of famous incident that occurred in the US Open where Djokovic kind of took Shelton's celebration and used it after that match concluded. And then also Shelton put up a pretty good fight, but Listen, Djokovic in Australia is just different. I mean, it's even one thing to get close against Novak at the U.S. Open. In Australia, he's just so rock solid. And I think Novak's experience is too much for him. He's too consistent. And even Novak's just like, he's built his weapons to the maximum. Even the forehand, even the serve, the volleying. I mean, he's got all of these things that are just firing at such a high level at the moment. I'm just not sure that outside the serve, if Shelton has enough there to really rally with Novak from the back of the court or anything like this. So I've got Novak pulling through that. And Djokovic, like I said, he's just been perfecting every part of his game to have so many tools and weapons now. Shelton has the serve, which is insane. And he has a good rest of his game. He's got a fearlessness and passion to bring the best out of the rest of his game. But my thing is that Djokovic was serving as well as I've ever seen him serve at the ATP Finals. He was hitting his forehand as well as I've seen him hit his forehand at the Australian Open last year. He was volleying and doing net play as well as I've seen him volley and do net play at the US Open Cincinnati swing last year. This is a guy that has remained incredibly athletically impressive even at 36, almost 37 years old. And yet he has perfected the rest of his game to have so many tools and weapons that are just amazing. And Shelton, I just don't know if his ground game and the rest of his weapons and tools can live up to Novak, especially in Australia, where Novak just has so much experience and and it's just ultra consistent. So I go Novak there. And then next up, we've got Taylor Fritz taking on Jordan Thompson, two pretty big servers. Have they played before is my question. If they have, obviously you'd expect that Fritz won, just assuming by ranking. But let's see. Yeah, Fritz is 2-0 in their head-to-head. One time they played was in 2017. It actually went 3 sets, but neither guy, I think, was even close to their best. It was in Acapulco. Fritz was a qualifier. Jordan Thompson was a lucky loser, so there you go. And then last year, 6-3, 6-3 for Fritz in Washington. And yeah, I like Fritz in Australia. This would be an amazing way to start his year. And I'm going to go with Fritz to the quarterfinals, who is going to be very upset that if he is able to do that, then he's going to have a certain Serbian in his quarter of the draw by the name of Novak Djokovic, who is the greatest player on the planet at the moment. Sinner or Khachanov, Jannik Sinner or Karen Khachanov, that could be a tough one. Karen Khachanov can play amazing tennis when he's at his best, but I got to go with Jannik. I think Jannik will be pretty happy with his draw. I mean, I would expect that he likes to play a guy like Karen Khachanov, because I don't know if Khachanov has a good forehand that he can use to dictate, but Sinner has a forehand that he can use to dictate. Like, it is tough. Okay, yeah, I remember that one. So, U.S. Open first round 2020. Sinner lost to Khachanov in the first round, but it went 5 sets. I remember that one. 3-6, 6-7, 6-2, 6-0, 7-6. Khachanov comes back from 2 sets love down to beat Sinner, which really shows good signs for Sinner that as a teenager, he was able to go 2 sets love on Khachanov. Bit of a heartbreaker there. Started Sinner's kind of heartbreak in 5 sets at majors. His next two, even the next one, 2021, was close. 7-6 in the third set is close. 7-6, 4-6, 7-6. Even the third match they played was 3 sets. All 2 of them in 2021, though, early in 2021. The other one 2020, though. I think, if anything, that shows good signs for Sinner because he was so young at the time, although already a very good player. And 2021 was already a really great season for Jannik. I gotta go with Jannik here. But I if it happens, then I predict it goes 4 sets. If Karen absolutely maximizes and plays his best, it might even go 5 sets. Demonor or Andrei Rublev. Talk about a contrast of offense to defense, and have they played is the question. Demonor versus Rublev. Let me see. Yeah, Paris. That's what I thought. I thought they played in Paris. Let me see. Demonor Rublev head-to-head. Because Paris was when Rublev played absolutely insane in Paris. That was an event that he could have won. He got so close to beating Djokovic. In my opinion, I talked about this on another podcast where I break down the matches of the year last year. Rublev played, in my opinion, the greatest performance he'd ever played against Djokovic in Paris, and he lost that match. In 3 sets, he hit 51 winners, he had 13 unforced errors. Against Djokovic, he was playing out of his mind. in that match, and that was definitely one of my favorite matches last year. So de Minaur actually leads 3-2, but Rublev won the last time they played in Paris last year. Let's see. De Minaur beat him in Rotterdam early last year, and the other 2 times were in 2018 that Demon won. But Demon won at Rotterdam 6-4, 6-4 last year. That's pretty interesting. Both the last 2 times that they've played, in fact, they haven't played on an outdoor hard court since 2018 when they played in Washington. That is tough. De Minaur or Rublev. You know what? The way de Minaur is playing at the moment, yeah, I'm gonna go with de Minaur. I really, that's what my gut feeling says, and I'm gonna go with Demon. It could be Rublev. It really could be. I'm not getting sick here and be like, he beat Alcaraz in an exhibition, he beat Djokovic, and he got the win over Djokovic, he's gonna win the whole tournament, so I'm not gonna sit here and do that. Rune or Hurkacz, that would be a really good match. If we see it, I thought Rune was serving very impressively in Brisbane, and also just playing at a pretty high level. Where sometimes he's struggled on outdoor hard courts for whatever reason so far in his career. It's really the shot selection and having so many tools from the back of the court. Hard courts really, especially outdoor hard courts, which they really which often don't play quite as quick as fast indoors, although Australia plays quick. But they really the ground game has ended up being really important on outdoor hard courts nowadays, where hard courts are so neutralizing, and you just have to be so consistent in every part of the ground game, not just grinding, but also playing offensive, etc., etc. Rune is still figuring it out because he has so much tools and variety from the back of the court, which I think is part of the issue. But Hurkacz versus Rune is 1-0 on Hurkacz when they play. It was Paris 2 years ago. Rune won pretty comfortably. Rune or Hurkacz, you know what? I'm going to take QB in 5 sets. Rune lost in 5 sets last year. I'll say he loses in 5 sets this year as well. I'm not quite confident yet in Rune going super deep at a lot of majors, and I really like Hurkacz to have some good performances at majors this year. That's going to be something that I put forward. The thing in my mind at the moment isn't about thinking, is Hurkacz a top-tier, top player compared to Holger, for example. I think he can beat Holger. I think that'll be a very close match, though, because Holger is tough. And Hurkacz will have to be very mentally rock solid, because a lot of his matches go to tiebreakers and tiny margins, and I am high on Holger Rune generally. I'm getting out of those kind of tight margin moments and being pretty mentally strong in those moments. But Hurkacz, the only thing that makes me kind of doubt that pick and him being good this year is his confidence having a beat down at the United Cup after having 2 match points for Poland. But outside of that, I am fully confident in QB, and I think he'll do well in this tournament. Dimitrov or Medvedev. Now that is a 4th round, if I've ever seen one. Dimitrov was, I believe, in the 13 to 16 range, which I believe means that he was going to play top 4 seed no matter what. And that is, whoever got him, that was always going to be tough. Dimitrov just beat Medvedev. A couple months ago. And, listen, I went into this thinking I was going to give Medvedev a strong, deep performance, but I actually forgot that he was going to play Dimitrov. It is 6-3 for Medvedev, which means Dimitrov's gotten a few wins. 2021 Indian Wells, I remember that. Dimitrov beat Medvedev in 3 sets. He beat him in Queens on grass. That's not quite as impressive in 2017, but still. But 3 sets in Indian Wells, Medvedev kind of fell apart there. They also won 3 sets in Vienna late last year that Medvedev won, and then Dimitrov got his revenge in Paris, which he probably wouldn't have won that Paris match if they didn't have that 3-setter in Vienna, where he learned a little bit better how to play Medvedev. He got a little bit of motivation to go all the way. But still, I think that Dimitrov could carry that on, and Australian Open is Grigor Dimitrov's best slam. I mean, we have a guy who is playing at such a top tier at the moment. His backhand is really hitting through the court so confidently and so well. The confidence and the mental side is such a big thing for Grigor, and it's a little bit different at majors, because I don't think Dimitrov's he hasn't played a major semifinal since US Open 2019. And I just, by the way, where Medvedev beat him in the semifinals in straight sets. I'm gonna go with Dimitrov though. I'm gonna back Dimitrov because if Dimitrov beats Medvedev and I see I didn't pick him, I'll be frustrated. Dimitrov, the backhand to backhand, I don't think Medvedev is killing Dimitrov at the moment at all. I think Dimitrov will be extremely motivated, extremely confident after Brisbane. He'll want to do well in Australia. Like I said, this is his best win percentage. This is the closest he's been to a major final. In 2017, he went so close to beating Rafa in the semis there in 5 sets. Epic match. Absolute epic. And I just think he's going to be intensely motivated and think, hey, maybe this is the time. And I'll pick Grigor. I got Grigor. Zverev or Ruud, that is a good match. Ruud was actually playing really well at United Cup. I'm sure these are a couple of guys that have played before. In fact, I know they have. Miami 2 years ago, one of Casper's most impressive victories against a top 5 Alexander Zverev. At Miami, he beat him en route to the Miami final. On outdoor hard courts, similar outdoor hard courts, perhaps a little bit slower in Miami. They are 2-2 in their head-to-head. Ruud beat Zverev the last time they played. That was at the French Open. 6-3, 6-4, 6-0 at a major in a big moment. This would be what? Round of 16? Quarterfinal? Round of 16? You know what? Zverev has underperformed at the Australian Open many times. Casper Ruud will be intensely motivated. If he's playing well enough to reach the 4th round, I don't see why he can't go deeper. Casper Ruud is a guy that usually either loses like 1st or 2nd round, really 2nd round at a major, or goes all the way to the final, or at least quarterfinal, semifinal. So if he's already in the 4th round, if he's playing Sasha, who has consistently underperformed at the Australian Open, he's only made 2 quarterfinals. Sasha Zverev's only made 2 quarterfinals, 1 semifinal. This is a guy who underperforms at majors. I think this would be a really close match. I really liked how Ruud is playing at United Cup, and that's enough to take me through. Because Zverev was down match points to Hurkacz. He lost to de Minaur. And he just wasn't... Ruud was dominant, although he probably wasn't playing as top-tier opponents. Zverev also beat Tsitsipas, so... I'm not going to sit here and say Ruud had a better United Cup than Zverev, because that'd be a ridiculous thing to say. Zverev had the better United Cup, but I really like how Ruud was playing, and in general, I like Casper Ruud at majors more than I like Sasha Zverev at majors, and especially Sasha Zverev at the Australian Open if Ruud is playing well enough to get to this position. So I'll take Casper, and I also like their head-to-head against each other, especially the last set that they played was a bagel at a big moment in a major. So I'm going to take Casper there, and that was just last year. Draper or Alcaraz. This is a danger moment for Alcaraz, but I am going to pick Alcaraz. Draper was cramping this time last year. Sometimes there are still question marks around Draper. He's playing really well this week. He's played back-to-back finals. I am pretty much as high on Draper as anybody. Like I said, I think he's extremely skilled, big forehand, big serve. But there are question marks. I really think I just love Alcaraz at majors. He hasn't lost to a guy at a major not named Sinner, Djokovic, or Medvedev since 2022 Roland Garros. Speaking of Zverev, beat him in an epic 4-set match there. And 4-set tiebreaker there was insane. But Alcaraz, Alcaraz has Zverev's number at majors, beat him at the US Open in the last major that was played, and Alcaraz is just such a good major player. He has only lost 1 best-of-5 set match. Alcaraz. The match that he lost in best-of-5 throughout his whole career so far, which is like 1 year, but which is like a few years, because he's so young. But the one match that he lost, Carlos Alcaraz, was to Matteo Berrettini, where Berrettini was the 6th seed. Alcaraz was, I think, 29th or 30th seed. And playing his first major as a seed, his first main entry into the main draw entry into the Australian Open, where he didn't have to qualify in. And he comes back from 2-0 against Matteo Berrettini, who would eventually reach the semis there, was playing amazing. And he comes back from 2-0 down, he pushes it to a 5th-set tiebreaker, and he loses. That's not that bad of it's not that disappointing of a loss, I would say. So Alcaraz is insane in best-of-5 sets. He has nothing to prove. US Open run, his first major title run, was one of the most impressive I've seen. in a while, although perhaps he didn't run into a Nadal or Djokovic, etc. But I guess who he did run into is Djokovic at Wimbledon in the final to beat him on grass courts, and beat Djokovic for the first time he lost in center court. So in about 10 years. I got Alcaraz over Draper. There's still a few question marks around Draper, especially in the majors. Alcaraz is used to the moment. I've confidently got Alcaraz, but I think that's going to be a tough match. And I've thought for a while that, like Yannick, who hits the ball super big, that Draper's game could be a problem for Alcaraz in the future. I don't think it will be a problem when that match happens, if it does happen. Jack isn't expected to get to that point. But if that happens, then I think that will be a tough match for Alcaraz. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I know Alcaraz gets through, that's going to be easy. No, but I will confidently predict Alcaraz. I won't be fully shocked if it's close, though. But quarterfinals. Quarterfinal predictions. Djokovic taking on Fritz. I've got Novak. I mean, listen. Fritz pushed Djokovic to 5 sets here a few years ago. You never know with Taylor. I'm actually higher on Taylor, I think, than a lot of people. I think this is a guy who works hard. I think this guy is actually pretty skilled. I like his serve. I like his forehand. His mentality is actually quite good, but his mentality against Djokovic is now coming with a lot of mental baggage, especially after their match at the US Open. And you never know, but I'm taking Novak. Sinner or de Minaur. I got Yannick. Yannick seems to love playing Demon, and that is a great draw for Yannick. It would be a great goal for Demon to make this close, to take a set. If he could take 2 sets, that'd be great. I'm sure Demon will come in wanting to have the first win over Sinner, but Sinner beat de Minaur to win the Davis Cup in comfortable fashion. Sinner won his first Masters against de Minaur in comfortable fashion. Sinner won the Next Gen Finals against de Minaur in comfortable fashion in the final, barely losing games. Yannick has de Minaur's numbers, and he has his numbers in some of the more important moments of his career. And he could have it in order to reach his first Grand Slam semifinal on hard courts. Something that he was 1 point away from doing at the US Open in 2022 against Alcaraz. I got Sinner there for sure. Hurkacz or Dimitrov. I've got Dimitrov. I think Dimitrov is a guy who's shown that he's really run with the momentum recently. And if he is able to get that win over Medvedev, which is an if, especially since Medvedev is a great player at this tournament. I want to talk about Medvedev, Sinner, Alcaraz as well, and Djokovic, as well as maybe a couple other players, and give like an overall thought on the men's events at the end of this kind of draw preview, or draw predictions. But Dimitrov or Hurkacz. Dimitrov and Hurkacz, I believe, played a very good match at Indian Wells in the quarterfinals in 2021, where Hurkacz got extremely close to winning, and it was Dimitrov with a miracle sliding shot on the full stretch volley winner that won. That was one of the shots of the year. And I remember that one well. So Dimitrov can beat Hurkacz on an outdoor hard court in a very tight moment, big moment. Dimitrov is 4-0 over Hurkacz, including a 3-setter in Paris. All of their matches have been close. In fact, their first 2 matches went to a 3rd-set tiebreaker. That's not something you see every day. And then their next one was in Rotterdam last year, 7-6, 7-6 Grigor. And then in Paris last year, 6-1, 4-6, 6-4 for Grigor. But good sign for Grigor that none of the sets went to tiebreakers. He was able to break Hurkacz twice. I got Grigor getting to his first major semifinal since US Open 2019. Has another chance at it after 2017. That is my prediction. Ruud or Alcaraz, I gotta go with Carlos Alcaraz. If Alcaraz can figure out the Australian Open courts, he's only played 5 matches here, but it wasn't that different at Wimbledon. And there he had to figure out an entire surface. Here he just has to do an event, so, and specific courts, which is something that people underrate, how well players play on specific events, specific courts, because every court is a little bit different. Every crowd at least is a little bit different. Every event is a little bit different from each other. And a lot of courts are pretty different. I got Alcaraz over Ruud. Alcaraz beat Ruud in the Miami final. I beat him in the US Open final. He likes playing Casper, I think, and even the exhibition, he just beat him pretty comfortably. But even outside of that, Alcaraz plays Ruud well. These are 2 guys that are talented. I like watching their matches. Alcaraz much more flashier, but Ruud very effective on the court, both very creative in pretty different ways. But I like watching both play. but Alcaraz is the predicted champion. We've got our semifinal predictions in the 2024 Australian Open. I have Djokovic versus Sinner and Dimitrov taking on Alcaraz. I can't believe I didn't put Medvedev in here. I was sure coming into this that I was going to choose the top 4 for the semifinals. That's what happened at Wimbledon. But no, Medvedev in last year lost to Korda in straight sets in the third round. The year before, he was down match point and 2 sets left down against Felix in the quarterfinals. This is a guy that has shown struggles from the third round to the quarters at the Australian Open. That might be the sweet spot, the 4th round for Dimitrov, who's playing amazing, just beat him at Paris to maybe do something. So I got Grigor there. But yeah, Sinner versus Djokovic, Dimitrov versus Alcaraz. Those are some good matches. All right, Djokovic versus Sinner. And then we have Djokovic versus Sinner. And listen, to me, this is the thing, right? I can imagine a reality where Jannik takes his form into the majors right away and kind of just runs away with that form, is able to finish off against top players, has the physicality element figured out, has the mental side figured out, all of that. Especially since he has the serve nowadays, which will help him in tight moments. I can see all of that happening. But I can also imagine a world where the last time he played Djokovic at a major, he lost in straight sets. He had 2 set points in the third set. He had chances in almost every set. Every set was incredibly close. So I can imagine a world where Jannik takes that form, but I can much easier imagine a world, and it's a world which I would bet on and predict much quicker, is the world where Djokovic is 10-0 after semifinals in the Australian Open, and Djokovic is just too good and too strong right now for Sinner at the majors, especially in Australia, where Sinner hasn't made the semifinals before. Sinner has struggled to open his season before. It's his worst major, in my opinion, so far in his career, with 2 4th rounds as opposed to US Open, another hardcore major where he has 3 4th rounds. In Wimbledon, he also only has made the 4th round twice, but at Wimbledon, he's made the semifinals. To me, Australian Open is his weakest. Like I said, last year he went down 2 sets to love against Fucsovics and against Tsitsipas. The year before, pretty comfortable straight sets loss to Tsitsipas. So I just think Djokovic at the Australian Open, I would be much quicker to bet on him. It is 2-1 for Sinner on hard courts. 2 of those matches happened in the span of 11 days, though. And the other thing is that between that span of time, Djokovic beat him 6-3, 6-3, which is to also show that at the late stages of a big event, Djokovic can still dominate over Jannik, Djokovic has played unbelievable. So I can imagine Sinner doing it. But I also can much easier predict and imagine Djokovic getting the win, especially because it's Djokovic in Australia. So I've got Djokovic over Jannik, but Djokovic will especially want to be serving the way he's been serving so far, especially against the return of Jannik, who's going to be ready to take advantage. Novak is a revenge player. We saw that after Sinner beat him at the ATP Finals round robin, and then he beat him in the final of the ATP Finals. Can you imagine Sinner denying the Davis Cup to Djokovic and saving 3 consecutive match points? Djokovic is going to come back with a fury at his event in Australia that almost plays like a home event, and the Australia crowd loves Djokovic too. I mean, listen, that's going to be a tough one for Jannik, especially as he's still figuring out the majors. I want Jannik, especially at Roland Garros and Australian Open, which to me are the least likely of where he'll win a major at the moment, just from event alone. Maybe from his form right now, he could bring that into Australian Open, his confidence, his momentum, his rhythm that he's kind of gained at the moment. But I think that, and his winning ways, but I think that just by events alone, I think he has a stronger chance at Wimbledon, where maybe not quite as many people can play as well on grass courts and where he might have a really good shot. And then also US Open, where he just played some incredible tennis. So, and on hard court. So Sinner can do this eventually, but I want him to use Australian Open, Roland Garros as kind of stepping stones, that even if he loses those slams, to use them as kind of pillars to move forward and get better in the best of 5 format, get better at the majors. A semifinal run would be great. He's now very consistent at getting to semifinals, but Djokovic might be too strong. So I got Novak, especially if Novak can deliver a serving performance like he did at the ATP Finals. in either match, by the way, because Novak, even in the first match they played the round robin, Novak served 20 aces. Sinner just played out of his head to win that. I love Jannik's peak and how strong it is. It's really good for tennis. Dimitrov or Alcaraz. I'm thinking about these matches in real time. I wasn't even thinking about Dimitrov having a run in my picks, I'll be completely honest. I was thinking about Medvedev, but you know what? I'm gonna pick Alcaraz to beat Dimitrov. I think another semifinal run would be great for Dimitrov, but he's lost in the semis here before. He's lost in the semis of majors many a times. Alcaraz is more used to the moment. We saw it at Wimbledon where we weren't sure. He had only just reached the quarterfinals for the first time, semifinals for the first time, final for the first time. Is he going to be able to beat guys like Medvedev, Rune, and Djokovic? Well, he beats them back-to-back on grass courts. 2 of them in comfortable fashion. Djokovic in 5 sets, which is almost more impressive. It's like beating Djokovic in these tight moments. The thing that we've seen Djokovic outlast these players time and time again. So I think that Alcaraz is impressive. He can figure out these courts quick if he's good enough to get to the semis. I've got Alcaraz having a revenge win over Dimitrov. And in my opinion, these are courts that potentially feel more comfortable with, which is the Australia courts as opposed to the Shanghai courts. But either way, I think that Alcaraz will get the win over Dimitrov. I like Alcaraz in the best of 5 format. I actually like Dimitrov in the best of 5 format at his best as well. But I've got another Alcaraz versus Djokovic final to start off 2024. This was an incredible rivalry all last year. I really didn't know what I was going to pick beforehand, but I'm predicting a second major final for Alcaraz Djokovic. Bit of a shame if we never see it again. It'd be great to see it at a different major. Alcaraz is an amazing hard court player. Would be great to see it on hard courts. We saw an epic between the two on hard courts in Cincinnati last year. Be awesome to see what Alcaraz can do. Really similar storylines, that remind me of Wimbledon. Even of the fact that Alcaraz seems so much of an underdog, even in his career. Because some people are kind of underestimating Alcaraz at the moment. I'm not that guy. Like I wasn't with Jannik all throughout last year. I'm as high as ever on Jannik. I'm as high as ever on Carlos. Both very different contrasting careers. By the way, I talked about that in my last video, which please check out, one of my favorite videos I've done so far. But I think that they're both contrasting players, but I'm ever so high on both of them. And I think Alcaraz is good enough to get here. I think if this happens, he wins at least 1 set. But I have Djokovic getting the trophy at the end of the day. Djokovic, the king of Australia. Alcaraz has played 5 matches here before. And the thing is, I think Djokovic is a pretty clearly better player at Australian Open than he is at Wimbledon. And he's great at Wimbledon, which is why that is so scary. He's 10-0 in the final. He's 10-0 even after making the semifinals. Beating Sinner then Alcaraz back-to-back, as good as they are playing at the moment, would be very tough. But I think Novak can do it. He beat Murray then Nadal about 12 years ago, back-to-back. And that would be a really, really great contest between what we always say, a generational rivalry, a rivalry that we don't know how many times they're going to play, such a different kind of difference in age that they might not even play more than 10 times, at least more than 15 times, and they would be by far the best rivalry ever not to do that. It is such a special moment in the sport. It would be great to see another major final between the two. Medvedev, Dimitrov, I could easily see Alcaraz being stopped. Even Jack Draper, Tommy Paul, if he's able to beat Draper, etc. Like, there are some dangers. You never know about a guy like Sasha or Casper Ruud who can play really well. And even Djokovic, you never know, but Djokovic has a really good draw. Sinner is the kind of danger player, and he's the question mark at the moment because of how crazy he ended last season. So now I want to move over. So Djokovic is the champion of my draw. It's just so hard to bet against Djokovic, especially when he dominated 2023 to the extent that he did. It's hard for me with Sinner and Alcaraz never even reaching the semifinals here. Djokovic being so dominant here. And also Medvedev, he lost in the 3rd round here last year. I'm just not sure how he'll do. He didn't have any warm-up event. In fact, Sinner, Alcaraz, and Medvedev all didn't play warm-up events. We'll see how that does for them. But I've got Djokovic. I've got Djokovic doing it again and getting number 25, which is an unprecedented number in the tennis world, men's or women's, pro majors, open air majors, amateur majors, like pre-open air, whatever you want to say. Number 25 is brand new. It's brand new and it's shiny. And we'll see if Djokovic gets it. So that's all I'll say about that. It's new. Nobody's ever done 25 before. But yeah, I've got Djokovic winning. And now I kind of want to move over, like I said, to talking about the event as a whole. What are the big storylines and kind of finish up on that. And I want to talk about 4 guys. Each 4 individually because I think all 4 of them are compelling. First of all, big storylines coming into this event. Djokovic, absolutely dominant in the majors last year. 3 out of the 4 majors at 35, 36 years old, winning straight sets in all 3 of them. 2 on 2 different surfaces, clay and hard courts. And he just dominated. In Australian Open last year, he lost just 1 set. The storyline is Djokovic still going to be able to do it? Is he still going to be able to dominate? Even after he lost a few matches at the end of last year to Jannik, he lost to De Minaur at United Cup, but people tend to doubt Djokovic. That's why I kind of picked him, but there are doubts. Listen, he's lost a set in 9 of his last 14 singles matches. He lost 3 of his last 9 singles matches. He's lost 2 of his last 4. This is a guy that's being tested a little bit more and more. He's coming off a very long season. In fact, I've said this before, but in 3 times that he's won 3 of the 4 majors the next season, he wins just 1 major. And in 2016, he won 2 majors, but then he really kind of fell out of the sport from his incredible heights that he had. So I think that Djokovic, the question is he going to be able to still dominate over Sinner, Alcaraz, who are still improving, and Medvedev, who can play so well in Australia with 2 consecutive finals? And by the way, I picked Medvedev to lose to Dimitrov, but anyone picking Medvedev to go further, I don't doubt you. And talking about Medvedev, the questions on Medvedev are, where does his name belong right now in the scope of tennis, especially at the majors? He just reached the final of the last major played at the U.S. Open. This is a guy who had an incredible year last year. Semifinals of Wimbledon for the first time as well. Thing is, 3rd round of Australia, 1st round of Roland Garros. He didn't win a major last year. But what is he in the scope of tennis at the moment? How is he going to do in Australia? Where, like I said, he reached 2 consecutive finals. I like him in Australia. I think the quickness of the courts kind of do well in Medvedev's favor. And I don't know. I just like everything I've seen from Medvedev. He played a lot of close matches, though, even when he reached the final in 2022. He played a 4-setter versus Tsitsipas. He played a 4-setter versus Nick Kyrgios. He played a 5-set match versus Auger. He seemed like he was playing close matches, and then obviously 5 sets with Rafa. So, at the U.S. Open, the year that he won, he only lost 1 set to Botic van de Zandschulp. Medvedev, by the way, at that U.S. Open, just a fun tidbit here, just to break from the video real quick, just to say a funny stat, which is one of my favorite stats. Medvedev, no man in the Open era has ever won the U.S. Open without dropping a set. Nobody in the Open era has ever won the U.S. Open without dropping a set. Not true about any of the other majors. Not least of which to do with Federer and Nadal. But the Medvedev was 1 set away from being the first man in the Open era to win the U.S. Open without dropping a set in his first major title. Botic van de Zandschulp was the guy who took a set off of Medvedev's. Just a fun fact. It wasn't Djokovic in the final. It was Botic van de Zandschulp who got so close. Medvedev has proven himself at the U.S. Open, also so consistent at the U.S. Open, semifinals, finals, title. But Medvedev, he's going to prove what he is in the scope of tennis. Sinner and Alcaraz, to me, though, are the 2 most compelling names. I've already talked a little bit about both. Alcaraz, to me, might be the most compelling of them all. Sinner is the most obviously compelling and brings out the most curiosity, I would say. But Alcaraz has played 5 matches in Australia. Sinner has played far more. Alcaraz has played 5 matches in Australia. He didn't play last year. But this is a guy who figured out Wimbledon. This is a guy who has played so well at the majors. 2 of his last 4 majors won. He only lost to a god-tier Medvedev, arguably a god-tier Djokovic, the way he was playing in that Roland Garros. And he's been incredible in the best-of-5 format, pretty much right from the start. So it's going to be really compelling to see how he can figure out these kind of outdoor hard courts, which is where he won his first Masters. It's where he won his first major on outdoor hard courts. So he should play well, right? We'll see. The others, like I said, the last time he played, he lost to Berrettini in 5 sets, where he had an incredible comeback but couldn't quite finish it. So we'll see how he can do. And that was when he was, I think, outside the top 30 in the world. So, and then Sinner, Jannik Sinner, coming off incredible form. Can he move it to the best of 5 format? Where I've said he has struggled. Daniel Altmaier, up match point last year. Zverev started cramping a little bit in that match. 5 sets, Tsitsipas. Cut down 2 sets to love, and then loses it in 5 sets. Djokovic, up 2 sets to love. Alcaraz, all-timer. Incredible match. 2 amazing comebacks from Sinner in the second and third sets up match point. He's serving. Can't pull it out. Alcaraz comes back and wins in 5 sets. This is a guy who has struggled in the best of 5 format. Rublev at Roland Garros 2022. And he starts cramping. This is a guy who needs to figure out this format. I hope that he can use the first couple of Grand Slams to kind of get better at it. I'm not expecting him to be absolutely killer right away. But the other thing I will say about Sinner is that I'm high about his potential at majors. This is a guy who is surface versatile. In fact, Roland Garros is maybe Jannik Sinner's best slam in terms of win percentage. Either first or second. I'll look that up. But I believe it's his best in terms of win percentage. He's reached 3 fourth rounds there. That is where he reached his first quarterfinal. He became the first man born in the 2000s in the 2000s millennium, in this millennium, to reach the quarterfinal of a major. First man born in the 2000s to reach quarterfinal of a major. Second best win percentage after Wimbledon. But Jannik has played Roland Garros one more time than he's played Wimbledon, which makes it just harder to keep a very kind of solid win percentage up. And even in 2022, the match I mentioned earlier against Rublev, I believe he won the first set there 6-1 before he started cramping, so he would have had a good chance at least to go further in that tournament as well. And I don't think Jannik is a nothing player on clay courts. I think he's good across all surfaces. He's played the majors so well. Like I said, reaching the 4th round of every major twice before turning 22 is quite the accomplishment for a very young player to show his consistency at all of the majors. And just the level that he's shown at majors, even in long best of 5 set matches. The match against Tsitsipas at the Australian Open last year, especially in the 3rd and 4th sets, he was showing an incredibly high level. Against Djokovic at Wimbledon, the first 2 sets were amazing. In particular, against Alcaraz at the US Open, all 5 sets, both players played amazing. And he's shown an incredible level at the majors, but he still does have some concerns, let alone the physical, some parts mental. Finishing against these guys, so we'll see how he can do, if he can kind of use Australian Open as kind of a jumping pad for the majors in the future. But yeah, I think the big storylines going in are Novak against the rest of the field, especially 3 guys, which are Sinner, Alcaraz, and Medvedev, how all of them are going to do. All 3, like I mentioned, very compelling in different ways. Alcaraz hasn't played this event very much. People are curious how he's going to step up. Medvedev has played this event very much, but didn't do very well last year. People are curious how he's going to step up in a whole different way, and where his name lands in the mix of the moment, because he's certainly currently above consistently a guy like Tsitsipas or even Zverev. But he's not a young guy like Sinner or Alcaraz, but he's also not a Djokovic or Rafa. So where is he, and how is he going to be doing at the majors, especially another hard court major? He's already got the US Open. He has almost every single big hard court title. See how Medvedev can do. And then, like I said, Jannik Sinner, can he move his form over to the majors? And then you have other guys in the draw who are interesting, who I was mentioning earlier, like Rune, Rublev, Hurkacz, Dimitrov. You're wondering how all these different guys are going to do, even a guy like Korda, or just these different kind of players that are like finding themselves in the draw. Casper Ruud, Zverev, a lot of different kinds of players that you definitely are curious how they're going to fall, let alone a guy like De Minaur, who's in very good form at the moment. So it's going to be a really interesting event, and the story of the men's side is certainly Novak versus the field, and Novak versus those 3 other guys, and then also certainly another story is Jannik, and seeing how Jannik Sinner can do at the majors. That's going to be a big thing to watch all year. I'm going to be very interested by this event. There's a lot of good storylines on the men's side going in. You'll always have people saying Novak has a good draw. You'll always have people saying Carlos has a good draw, has a bad draw. Medvedev has a good draw. You'll have people saying the draw is rigged. You'll have all of these things. The truth is Novak has a fantastic draw. Like, that is true. Novak has a lot of players in his draw that he performs incredibly well against. He'll be happy with Tsitsipas. He'll be happy with Taylor Fritz. These are two guys that he's performed incredibly well against. Tsitsipas was 2 sets up on him at Roland Garros, so not fully easy, but he avoided guys like, say, Alexander Zverev. He avoided guys like Hubert Hurkacz, who you never know, Alex de Minaur, who just beat him, Grigor Dimitrov, Holger Rune, for example. Like, he avoided some of these guys. So I think he has a very good draw. I would also say Carlos has a doable draw. I don't think Carlos has a bad draw, but that being said, definitely a tougher sort of draw. I mean, yeah, like Alcaraz early, he could have potentially Tommy Paul, who he has beaten Carlos a couple of times, one of the few players who has beaten Carlos a couple of times. You have Jack Draper, who, like I said, has a big game, big serve, big game that can really push Carlos back, especially on these courts. He's in the final this week. He's been playing great, honestly, great tennis. Like, Gasquet is a good first opponent. I don't think Ricky is going to have that much for Alcaraz, although I hope Richard Gasquet plays in a lot more tournaments and stays around, because I love what he brings to the sport. I don't want his tenure in the sport to be done yet. But you have Draper, you have Paul, I mean, you have Bublik, who, you have a few guys who can test him a little bit, especially a guy like Tommy Paul. And then on the other side, you have Zverev, who you never know, just beat him at the ATP Finals, although on indoors. You have Casper Ruud. So I can imagine a scenario where Tommy Paul or Jack Draper, one of these guys, even like Chinese teenager Shang was looking really good with his forehand, or Bublik, somebody. You never know. Cameron Norrie's beaten him. I don't think it would be Norrie, but whoever it is, you could have one of these guys testing him, and then, for example, tire him out or wear him out a little bit before Zverev, Ruud. Then those guys might wear him out before a guy like Medvedev, out Djokovic. So you can make an argument that it's not a great draw, but I still think it's doable. I mean, I still think he also avoided some guys in his section that might be a little bit tougher. And I think it's a doable draw for Carlos. I think it's doable for both. Novak definitely had the better draw of the two. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how the tournament kind of advances. Medvedev has the tough draw, especially with the 4th round of Dimitrov. But we'll see how he can do. It's going to be fun to watch. Medvedev, by the way, and Alcaraz can both be world number 1 by the end of the event. Medvedev is world number 1 if he wins the event and neither Alcaraz or Djokovic reach the semifinals. Alcaraz is number 1 if he wins the tournament, point blank period. If he wins Australian Open, Alcaraz is number 1. Or if he reaches the final or the semifinal and Djokovic doesn't. So if he's in the final and Djokovic isn't his opponent, then he's number 1, is Alcaraz. If he reaches the semifinal and Djokovic isn't in the semifinals in the last 4, then Alcaraz is world number 1. So it's going to be overall just incredibly exciting event. And it's going to be fascinating. It's Novak versus the field. That's the storyline going in. Storylines of world number 1, Novak versus the field. Can Novak continue the dominance into 2024? If he wins this Australian Open, I'm just going to do some math real quick. If I'm not mistaken, he will have won 5 of the last 6 majors that he's played, which is just, I mean, come on. Five of the last 6 majors that he's played. And then if you include 2021, because he didn't play in Australia in 2022, if you include 2021 where he was 1 match away from winning the Grand Slam, that's 3 of the 4 there. So I'm just doing math in my head real quick. Hopefully I'm getting some of this math right. But he will have won 8 of his last 10 majors if he wins in Australia that he's played. 8 out of the last 10. That is ridiculous. That's 2.5 years. He will have won 4/5 of the majors he's played over the last 2.5 years. That is just ridiculous. And we'll see if he can do it. It would be 5 of his last 6 majors played, continuing a dominance from 2023. We'll see if he keeps it going. I know, unless you're like a massive Novak fan, I think a lot of people are eager. Can somebody finally do it? Step up. Take Novak out at the Australian Open. It's going to be very hard to do. I really do think he's the big favorite. I'm more curious about some of the majors coming up later, but we'll see if somebody can do it. I don't think it's impossible. Novak is my favorite, but we'll see what all happens. But yeah, it should be a super exciting kind of event there. A lot of good storylines. And yeah, I appreciate you guys joining into the video. Don't forget to like the video. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe to Anthony's Tennis Hub for all the stuff coming up with all the Australian Open stuff I will be covering. I always appreciate you guys joining in, and I'll see you guys at the next one for the next Anthony's Tennis Hub podcast.